You're listening to Next Pitch, the student athlete playbook for parents raising tomorrow's athletes.
Hi, my name is Anthony Leveritz. I am the host of the Next Pitch podcast. We are excited to be doing this, and my partner in this and producer's name is Jason Cardona. He and I together hatched a plan to come up with a show that we're going to cover all sorts of different topics. But our first set of episodes is diving into the life cycle of a student athlete. And we decided we wanted to do this just because of all of the different issues and problems that have occurred in youth sports over the last few years. Both of us are parents. I have a deep coaching background, coached in college basketball for 18 years, head coach in Division I, it was Power 5 in those days, the University of Utah, and have seen it from kind of all angles. And so we want to have a conversation and a dialogue with a bunch of guests, some that people will know. We're bringing Brandon Cooks on. Alex Brink is coming on. Grant Fewer going to come be a guest with us. And then some people that you may not know, but are really, really, really deep experts on some subject matter that we want to cover, that we believe can have an impact on young people and the people that support young people through that athletic process. We're going to begin the series kind of talking about what it's like to get involved young. What is youth sports supposed to be about? When should you get involved? Should I play more than one sport? Should I start specializing? And I'm going to tell you right now, you shouldn't start specializing young. But we're gonna have that discussion. We're going to talk about the parent child relationships and some of the problems that can occur in sports. And one of the things that, there's stuff that you just can't make up. There was a parent in Oregon recently that used a down marker to throw at a referee to make his point that the referee had made a bad call. And the impact that had on all of those kids, I think they were second graders, maybe third graders. This is second grade football, third grade football. And a parent is using a yard marker as a javelin to throw it at an official. And so obviously that is very extreme. But we want to dive into how do we avoid not just that problem, but how do we avoid anything like that happening in sports and make that atmosphere and that environment great for young people. The other thing we want to talk about is that parent-child relationship. What is that relationship all about? What is that positive experience that sport can play for both parent and child? And there is a ton that goes into that. We talk a lot about from in our family and when I was coaching about the time directly after the game is a critical, important time. And if you get nothing else out of our podcast and what we talk about and who we talk to, remember this: your kid wants to hear that you love them and you love watching them play. They don't want to hear all of the negativity about what they did on the field or court. They don't want to hear about their coaches. They don't want to hear about why Johnny or Susie is playing more than them and they should be playing. They want to hear, I love you and I love watching you play. And if you can provide that for them and they can feel comfortable in that with you, I believe you're going to have a much better relationship with your child. Some of the genesis of this came from also some experiences that my wife had while she was playing. And there's this thing called practice anxiety. And some of it's natural. We get nervous before we play. We have nerves that show up and we're anxious to play. Some of it's just excitement. But what we're talking about is the negative side of this. And I remember I was coaching men, and this was in the late 90s, early 2000s. and my wife was playing in the Pac-10, and I'll leave her school name nameless right now. But we weren't married at the time, and she was in her senior season, and she called me and told me that she wanted to hurt herself, not die. We're not talking about, ending her life. We're talking about hurting herself, like getting in a car accident just bad enough that she didn't have to go to practice, stepping on a curb and spraining her ankle so that she didn't have to go to practice, and take the mental abuse that was going to come from her coach during practice time. And that is something that has resonated with me and stuck with me over the years. And we're going to talk a lot about how coaches and players can interact and make sure that we continue to understand that this is about a student athlete's experience and growth, and an ancillary part of their educational experience. And in some cases, not ancillary, some cases for some of these kids, this is the biggest part of their educational growth. And remembering that they're young people, they're young humans, they have emotions, they have feelings. Most of the time they're trying as hard as they possibly can. And we're going to dive into that topic and talk about how we can better approach our student athletes as coaches to provide them with an experience that we want them to have. Then once we get into beyond sort of the youth sports, what does a multi-sport athlete look like? Should I specialize? What is that lifeline? What is that timeline? When should I start thinking about things like sports science, sports psychology? When should I think about having nutrition be a part of my life? When should I start thinking about the mental performance? When should I start thinking about maybe cutting, if I'm a 3-sport athlete, cutting it down to 2? If I'm a 2-sport athlete, should I cut it down to 1? What is that time frame between middle school and high school, if you think you have a chance to be that kind of an athlete? When is that time frame? And we're really dig into the mental performance side when we get into that. We'll have a guest on. Her name is Hannah Huesman, who is an expert on mental performance, has worked in both, Major League Baseball, other professional sports, worked with high-level executives, and does one-on-one training for athletes of all walks of life. Former Division I athlete herself, and really dive into her story, which is pretty cool, as well as kind of densely discuss some subject matter around mental performance, what it is, how we're going to introduce that to young people, and do that same thing with those other topics that I talked about: sports science and nutrition and training, rehab, prehab, and really take a deep dive into all of that. And then once we're getting to high school, and we think about our mental performance and how many sports I'm going to be, how do I become, how many sports I'm going to participate in once I get into high school? How do I become an elite athlete? What is the definition of being an elite athlete? How do I prepare my mind, my body? How do I train? If I'm a multi-sport athlete, how do I find the time to play the other sports and have that experience of being a part of another sport, while also giving enough time to my primary sport to get me where I want to go? And then we'll talk about recruiting and this new world that we live in. Recruiting and being recruited has always been a difficult thing for families who've never been a part of it before. We're going to really dive into that process. What should you be looking for when you're searching for a university? First of all, what are the really key components that go into making a choice about where you're going to go to school as an athlete? What is that process like? What does it feel like to be recruited? What are the questions I should be asking? What is the NCAA clearinghouse? Why is that important? Where should I go to find that kind of stuff? Who should be advising me? And we'll dive deep into all of that sort of craziness that will come from that process, and hopefully, unwind that a little bit so it can be the cool experience that it should be, and give you some guidance on what that should look like. And then along the way, we're also going to have some fun. Many of the people that we're going to be talking to are just Well, I think they're all cool, or I wouldn't have any of them on. But I think you'll find them very, very interesting, fun, and we'll dive into some dad jokes. We're going to dive into giving ourselves some advice when we were now that we're old. What would we tell our younger selves? And really just try to have an enjoyable, fun conversation around all things related to the life cycle of being a student athlete. This is going to be for student athletes, parents, and anybody who supports them. And if you'll take a listen and follow us, we'd be grateful. And we look forward to taking this journey along with you.